taxation with representation hasn't been such a good idea either. And it really hasn't been. On this 4th day of February, here we are. It's Saturday. It is 8 a.m. and it is 25 degrees outside, plus or minus. I know it's cold because Fernando won't come out from under the couch. I don't need a thermometer. I just look for Fernando and see where he is in the morning. If that's Fernando the cat, by the way, for those of you that don't know, you first-time listeners, Fernando the cat. Those of you live streaming this morning, www.wcab59.com. Good morning. Here we are in the Aqua Room, and I am wearing Tom, my engineer, this morning. Good morning, Tom. How's this for a vintage tie, huh? Huh? It is bright and wide. Oh, yeah, this is vintage European here. Gold in the Aqua Room. So my wife's the one who said it was aqua. I keep calling it the blue room. She said, it's not blue, that's aqua. More of a marine. Carolina blue. Yeah. Is that what it's supposed to be? Really? Carolina blue? It's a little, yeah, I don't know. We had a whole conversation about sea foam. And I've been saying it for weeks, and I keep having this conversation with women. Men have 4 colors, right? Green, blue, yellow, and the other color, red. We have 4 colors, occasionally black and white. They know they have a color for everything. I mean, they have a name. They have a name for every color. Let me say it that way. You know, she kept calling it plum and strawberry, and I said, those are fruits. Those aren't colors. Everything. Oh, taupe. Had a whole conversation about taupe. Taupe. Is it a taupey taupe? Or is it a bluey taupe? A silvery taupe? Oh, yeah. A lighter taupe? It's taupe. I'm a man. It's taupe. We are going to talk about taxes at some point. Why can I talk about taxes, Tom? How's that for a segue? Because I'm Gilbert Carmona. I'm an enrolled agent. An enrolled agent is a person enrolled with the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, Department of the U.S. Treasury, gave me my license. It's actually not a license. I am actually an enrolled agent, enrolled with them. What can I do with that? Well, the most important thing I do is I prepare tax returns, and we are preparing a lot of them right now. First day to e-file was the 23rd of January, and it has been going very, very smoothly. We are actually very surprised at how smoothly it's been going. There have been very few problems. When I say problems, I'm talking about with the IRS and with their computer systems and their mechanisms and all of that. Everything's actually going very, very well. People have actually started to get refunds already, believe it or not. Now, people that have refunds because of child tax credit or earned income tax credit or the child care credit, dependent care credit, those credits get extra scrutiny from the IRS. They get an extra look over. Those aren't going to be processed till the end of February. They're just going to store them in the bank, review them, make sure all the dependent information is more or less accurate with what they have in their system before they start releasing those checks. They've been doing that now for about 5 or 6 years. They do it to combat ID theft and to combat people claiming dependents that aren't there. So that's, scams and frauds and all that kind of stuff. And it's been effective. I know it's made people wait extra for their refunds, but it's been effective. So they're going to continue to do that. So those won't be released. But your normal returns, people that don't have these credits that are getting a refund because they overpaid on their taxes, they're calling us, telling us they've gotten their money. It's been in the bank. So which surprised me because it really was a fast turnaround time. It really was. I didn't expect to see that till this week or beginning of next week, but sure enough, it's happening. So no problems there. Now, North Carolina said they were going to hold off on processing tax returns because of, as Emily said last week, budgetary constraints. Tom, budgetary constraints. You know what that means? They don't have any money. That's what budgetary constraints. Let me tell you budgetary constraints. Budgetary constraints is you go to Walmart and pay $25 for 3 dozen eggs. That's a budgetary constraint. These people in Raleigh have a whole other definition of budgetary constraint. They're holding on to their money is what I think. They said it had something to do with the law. They were not going to start processing them till the end of February. Well, they started processing those already. I've gotten back several dozen acceptances on those. When are they going to cut with the refunds? I don't know. As soon as people start letting me know they're getting their North Carolina refunds, I will let you know. And South Carolina's been right there with no problems. So things have been going pretty smooth. And we are pleasantly pleased after the last couple of years of uncertainty with what was going to happen with the IRS. It's nice to have just a normal year with no excitement and no drama. Now, we do prepare tax returns. If you need your tax return prepared, my office number is 828-289-9300. I have two offices, 704 Oak Street in Rutherfordton. I'm sorry, Tom, see how, boy, we are creatures of habit. We are creatures of habit. 704 Oak Street in Forest City. I'm going to get phone calls about this. You know that. You know that. You are not in Rutherfordton. In Forest City, 704 Oak Street, the former Carter Bank building right next to Big Dave Seafood there on Oak Street. We moved in, officially moved in May. There we are preparing tax returns. We are wide open there, and I have an office in Tryon at 226 South Trade Street, the beautiful Art Deco building right off the historic downtown Tryon. But one phone call gets you an appointment at both offices, 828-289-9300. People ask me about, can they email me their documents and stuff. We actually have a secure portal link. What you do is call the office and go ahead and give them your information and tell them to send you a link. They will send you a link to our secure portal. I just like saying that it's secure. And it really is secure. It's a very high-tech thing. Rafael, my IT guy, assures me it is the gold standard in what you can do, and you can just upload all your whatever documents you have, because pretty much nobody's mailing anything anymore. I mean, everything's coming in an email to you, or you go to the website and download it. People that they work for companies that use Paychex or ADP or any of these other payroll providers, they just want you to go to their website and download a PDF of your documents. Banks are doing it now for your mortgage statement. The college does it for your tuition statement, your 1098 tuition statement. The Department of Education does it for your student loan interest payment. So you don't have to print that and bring me a hard copy. I mean, unless you want to, some people do. But you can actually just download that PDF and go ahead and right back upload it to my secure portal, and we will get started on your tax return as soon as we get that little notification that you sent that to us. Telephone number again is 828-289-9300. Now, people ask me what's happening with the Rutherfordton office. I still have a sign there. We are still using it. I have Ann there. She is greeting people, and she's pointing them to Forest City. We still have people. I mean, like I said, we're creatures of habit. Yeah. I had a man show up, and he told Ann, he said, "Oh, I knew this. I knew it." He got because we send you a text confirming your appointment, or text or email, whatever you want, confirming your appointment, and it tells you the address that you're to go to for your appointment. You just put that in the GPS or whatever you do and get over there. But he showed up there, and he said, "Oh, I knew this. I knew where you were. I even drove by it and saw it." It was funny. It was funny. So I feel your pain, sir. I really do. Well, I've driven by a couple of times and wanted to pull in. It's really funny. We really are creatures of habit. But while I was there, we were there 13 years. That's a long time to be there at one location. Of course, we've been in Tryon at that location for 8 years. I've been servicing the Tryon area for 20 years. But we've been there. I've been doing tax returns for almost 25 years now. It's a great business. We love it. We enjoy it. And we want to service the people. Again, 828-289-9300. So the deadlines this year, the first thing I want to say is they are not extending. There are no extensions. It's not even on the table. Somebody actually asked me if they were going to extend. I said, why? They said, well, because of the pandemic. I said, what pandemic? It's 2023. There are no extensions. There's nothing on the table. That's it. It's over. As a matter of fact, many people have noticed the refunds were a little smaller. They are not giving the credits the way they were. child tax credit's $2,000 this year, up to, I need to say it that way, up to $2,000. It's composed of two components. There's a refundable portion, a not refundable portion, and the thresholds for earned income tax credit, I really think they need to be looked at. They're very low. I mean, somebody at the IRS is listening to this program, Tom, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a press release Monday that they're going to look at those. Oh, yeah, they listen to Gilbert Talks Taxes. But I think they need to be raised because of this thing called inflation. They did a 7.8% adjustment for people that get Social Security, and they've adjusted other rates up, but those thresholds are still, I think, very low. With wages the way they've gone up, we're seeing a lot of people what we call phase out. So if you make over a certain amount of money, and I'm not going to say what that amount is because people then think it's for them. Different categories, married, single, widower, qualified widower, different categories have different thresholds, okay? So whatever that threshold is, you phase out of earned income tax credit. You actually also phase out of child tax credit, but that threshold's, very high, $200,000 in some cases. So you phase out of those thresholds as low as $36,000, $37,000, $38,000. So, which is really not, we're seeing, and I've said it over the years that this is happening because I've seen wages rising. You have a couple making over $100,000 now. That's not uncommon. It's just, the thing is, what's the buying power of $100,000? That's what's changed. But you've got couples making this. So people are phasing out left and right. And people say, well, I got it last year. I said, well, you're not getting it this year. And when I show them how much they made, and they're like, yeah, we really did work a lot of overtime. Or, yeah, we worked hard. Yeah, I got a raise. Well, that raise took you right out of that bracket. So you're not getting that earned. I'd rather have the raise, by the way. So I'd rather make more money, but takes you right out of the bracket for that. So we're seeing quite a bit of that. So people are getting a little bit smaller refunds because of it. Or let me say it this way. They're not getting the big refunds they were getting in the last couple of years because of it. So filing deadlines are not being extended. We have for partnerships and 1120 S corporations, March 15th, those have to be filed or extended. You can extend it. You kick the can up the road till September 15th. We're trying to get them all done, and we are on track right now and looking pretty good to get all of our core clients done. So, because we hit it really early this year. Everything was available. The software was up and running. So we hit a lot of these very early. So we're looking good on that. March 15th, though, is that deadline. Then the deadline for your personal and corporates, that's your 1120 people, your C corporations, is April 15th. Now this year, April 15th falls on a Saturday. Monday is Emancipation Day in Washington. It is a holiday. So it's been extended to April 18th. Tuesday, April 18th is the last day to file that refund. Now, if you file an extension, remember, an extension is an extension to file your paperwork, not an extension to pay. Every year people say, I don't have the money, I want to file an extension. No, wrong reason. You file the extension because you can't get your paperwork pulled together. If you have a reasonable assumption that you're going to owe, you need to send some money with that extension. Otherwise, you're going to get a pretty hefty penalty for your failure to pay. Okay? So you can extend. If you extend, it kicks it up till October 15th. Now, let me say a word about extensions. You can extend today. If you know or you suspect you're not going to be able to pull your paperwork together, like we already have some people that have called us for whatever reason. One man's out of the country. Another man's got some things going on with his business. They're doing an expansion project. And he called me and he said, Gilbert, I just can't get the board together to finalize our P&L for last year. And this March 15th deadline's coming quick. We can go ahead and extend. Be better safe than sorry. You can extend it, and you can still file it on time if you can pull it together. Okay, so I always tell people, if you think you're not going to be able to do it, go ahead and extend. Extend as soon as you know, because that way you're not, or I'm not, because they're going to call me Tom. They're not doing it. It's Gilbert. They're going to call me April. Well, it's the 18th this year, but they're going to call me April 14th, at about 4:30, right as they're getting ready to leave the office, they're going to call me and go, by the way, extend that thing. Yeah, the thing we talked about 3 months ago, you mean? Extend that one? Yeah. So go ahead. If you know you're going to do it, you can do it now. There is no penalty for filing an extension and then filing your tax return on time. There's really no downside to do it. It's just the 20 minutes and the paperwork to go ahead and file the extension. Of course, we do that electronically, and we get that out of the way for you. And that is both federal and state. You file an extension. Now, South Carolina, if you file a federal extension and it gets accepted, they accept that. You don't have to worry about filing an extension in South Carolina unless you're going to send some money with it. It's time for the first break already? I didn't even get warmed up here. Okay, let's take that break. Gilbert Talks Taxes, WCAB, AM 590, FM 100.9.
Jesse James Railroad Express has moved to a new location, 126 Park Lane Plaza in Rutherfordton, and they've changed their name, Jesse James Chowhound Canteen. A new name, a new place, and a limited menu. Currently, you can get smoked sausages, kielbasa's, and of course those delicious hot dogs. And you can get coleslaw, macaroni and cheese, and potato salad. Stay tuned for their new menu at their new place. Hours are Tuesday through Saturdays from 11 until 2, closed Sundays and Mondays. Jesse James Chowhound Canteen, 126 Park Lane Plaza in Rutherfordton. Call 286-9368 and get a 99-cent hot dog with mustard, chili, and onions, Tuesdays only.
Hi, this is Christy. Gilbert and I are excited to announce our new name and location, Carmona Financial Consultants at 704 Oak Street in Forest City. Let us help you with your taxes. Let us help you with your investments. Carmona Financial Consultants at 704 Oak Street in Forest City. Stop by or give us a call at 828-289-9300.
We are back. Thank you for that, Christy, my wife, Christy, the ever-cheerful Christy. Yes, we have a new office at 704 Oak Street in Rutherfordton. In Rutherfordton. She's never going to let me forget. I guarantee you I will hear about that when I get home. In Forest City, 704 Oak Street in Forest City, our new location. Oh, yeah, no, she will be reminding me about that. You said Rutherfordton? Good morning. We are back. Gilbert Talks Taxes. And so somebody called Tom, my ever-cheerful engineer, this morning, and it was a widow, and she wanted to know about funeral expenses, was her question. Is that deductible, or what is deductible?
What is deductible? She paid for the services.
Paid for the services. Well, first of all, our condolences to her on the passing of her husband, and we're so sorry to hear about that. So this is a whole topic. The simple answer is this. No, funeral expenses are not deductible. Okay? Now, as a widower, man or woman, the widower, you get to claim on the tax return, you can still file married in the year that the spouse passed away. Okay, which is a big deal because married, filing jointly, gets you the higher standard deduction. Gets you the so I'm going to assume they're over 65. Just pulling a number out. They're going to get the $24,800. They're going to get the senior bump, as we call it, standard deduction, and whatever senior bump, whatever they would have qualified for. If they're blind, there's a little extra credit there. There's some extra credits. I don't have my little cheat sheets in front of me. The numbers go up every year. Actually, let me tell you what happened. Safety tip for everybody. Don't put a bottle of water in your computer bag, okay? Safety tip for everybody at home that's listening. Don't put a bottle of water in your computer bag. You're busy, you're running out the door. You say, what could possibly happen? It's not going to leak. It will leak. No, I haven't turned the computer on yet. It only sat in about, an inch of water. But I haven't turned it on yet. I'm going to let it dry out thoroughly. But I have no computer this morning. I am actually doing all of this. What do you do? What's the word I want to use? It's without a parachute. How's that? Yeah. I'm doing all of this without a parachute. Without a net. I have no net. I have no laptop. For those of you live streaming, you will see the space on my table. That's where normally a computer sits. And I'm still looking at it. Talk about being a creature of habit. I'm still looking at it like there's a computer sitting there. Okay, so I don't know all the numbers off the top of my head because, again, they change every year. And I have a little chart on my desk, and I verify everything with the software. So the spouse passes, you get in that year, you get to claim married, filing jointly, whatever you were filing. Now, if there's children, you still get to claim the qualifying widower, where you get to claim those children. You get to do that for 2 years. So the year of death and the year after. But as far as paying funeral expenses, those are not deductible. Now, normally, if there is an estate, there are a lot of things you can deduct from somebody's passing in the estate tax return, like legal fees, accounting fees, advisory fees for all the people involved with liquidating the estate. If you have an executor that you're paying money to, those are deductible. But funeral expenses are not deductible still even there. So, which I disagree with personally. I've always said I feel that those should be deductible. Now, unfortunately, even if they were deductible, they would be on a Schedule A. And with standard deduction being so high, I mean, $24,800 for married filing jointly, even, $12,400 for single, that's a very high standard deduction. And that's where, your house mortgage goes, your donations to charity goes, medical goes there, and there is a threshold you have to go over with medical, and property taxes, personal property taxes, and real estate property taxes go there, and other deductions go on Schedule A. But with standard deduction being so high, we are having very, very few. And it's been this way since the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which was President Trump's signature tax bill that doubled that standard deduction. So we've had very few people filing Schedule A. We used to call that the long form and the short form, for you people that remember that. There was a long form and a short form. Long form, if you had a Schedule A and you got, above standard deduction. But we hardly see it. As a matter of fact, when you see somebody with Schedule A, I give it an extra look to make sure there wasn't a mistake made, like an extra zero got put somewhere, because so few people are getting it now. So to answer your question, no. Now, you still file a tax return for that person in the year of death. Then that closes that out with the IRS. So everything, income still taxable, and then whatever refund you get, if you get a refund, goes to the widow or widower. Okay, I hope I answered that, because that's a topic, and I've talked about estates and estate planning and what happens when somebody dies. I think I have talked like for an hour straight on a whole show just about it, because somebody asked me a question about it, because that is a deep, deep topic. My advice, if there's any kind of an estate, or if you're planning an estate, my advice is get a good elder tax law lawyer. Get a lawyer that knows elder law. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Was that our friend?
Yeah.
Okay.
You did a great job.
Oh, I did a great job. Well, there's one testimonial. Well, thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Well, this is a subject, I mean, I have an office in Tryon, and Tryon is, the bulk of my practice there is retired people. People that have come down here. I say come down here because, Tryon's a suburb of Long Island. I mean, there are people, well, in Florida, well, I was just going to say, that's where I was going. Exactly, Tom. Florida and Texas and California. A lot of people from California are moving into the Lake Lure, Tryon area, Lake Lanier, which is a beautiful area. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful there. And Rutherford County is beautiful, too, everybody. I don't want to get phone calls about that. A lot of people are coming here also to this area, too. They're coming here, and they're retired people. So I've really just spent a lot of time on that side of the practice. And I myself am 63 years old, so I'm looking at a lot of these issues now and having a lot of conversations about it. And what I was going to say before she called, and thank you for calling, was if you're planning an estate, I can help you with the tax side of it. That's what I do. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want to give I don't want to give law advice. I'll give tax advice all day long, but it's a a gray area there where you cross over into law because the two are so closely knit. But I do recommend, please get a good elder law lawyer, a lawyer that at least is, does it. Not every lawyer does it. And a lot of lawyers, oh yeah, they say they do elder law or they do wills and they do things like that, but it's not the bulk of their practice. Get somebody that is the bulk of their practice, because we are in that kind of an environment now where there are people that is all they do. And they're here local. You don't have to, go somewhere else. And when I say local, I'm talking about in a 2-3 county area. There are quite a few. There's a few I can recommend that I've talked to and worked with. Unfortunately, some of them are retiring, so I'm always looking for new ones, and I'm always checking them out and calling them, looking at their websites and reading their reviews. I want to make sure before I recommend somebody that is what they are doing, elder law, and they understand it. Setting up an estate can be an expensive proposition. Yes, I get it. But I also see what happens dying intestate, dying without a will, dying without having all this stuff, etched in stone, where your heirs know what's going to happen. Your beneficiaries know what's going to happen without a doubt. I mean, I could do programs, and I have, about people that have passed away, and, it's literally a feeding frenzy with the heirs coming. I mean, I can tell you stories. So somebody came to a person who passed away's house and took their car, said they wanted me to have that car. Well, I'm sorry, but if it's not in writing, it's not. Please return the car before I call the police. I don't know why this stuff always ends up on my desk, but it does. But please return the car. We want that back. And they go through and they just help themselves to stuff. It's crazy. And they call me asking me about who the beneficiaries are and who gets what. And I always tell them, I said, I can't tell you anything. I can't tell you who beneficiaries are, and I won't. But, there's the famous story that I've told, famous because I've told it so many times. The man who died, his wife calls the 401k company and, wants to file a claim on her husband's $1 million 401k. And the person answering the phone gets her name and everything, and he says, well, you're not the name on the beneficiary form. And the lady literally went ballistic. She had a hard time with it. What do you mean I'm his wife? Well, that doesn't mean a thing. It's who did he name as a beneficiary that's on there. That's who's going to get the money. And, of course, she got the manager on the phone, and the manager said no. And the manager couldn't tell her who the beneficiary was. That's the thing, because you can't. And I've said the story many times. She got a lawyer, and it turned out, through it, then it becomes a legal matter. It turns out it was the man's first wife who had been his beneficiary, who was the recipient of the $1 million 401k. And then her argument was, we were married, it was my money, and I'm the beneficiary, and he accidentally or forgot or whatever to change the name on there. And my response was, and a lot of heads at that meeting got turned, how do you know that? How do you know he didn't want his first wife to have that? You don't know. And he's not here to tell us, by the way. So you don't know. So you can't sit here and speak for him. So make sure all that stuff is done while you're still alive. It'll save a lot of people a lot of trouble. And get yourself a good attorney. I can help on the tax side of it, of course, and I do. It's time for a second break. Yep. Cover Talks Taxes, WCAB, AM 590, FM 100.9.
Hi, I'm Sandra. My husband Peterson and I own Precision Detail and Tint. We invite you to come to our new location at 620 U.S. Highway 64, Rutherfordton, on the corner of Silvers Lake Road and Highway 64. Whether you need specialty detailing for your car, RV, or boat, or window tinting for your automobile, or home or business, we can help you. Voted Best of Rutherford County for 11 straight years. You will know you will get quality work at a good price. Stop by for an appointment or call 828-245-8889. We're open Monday through Friday 9 to 5 and Saturday 9 to 1.
This is Kimberly. If you owe the IRS for prior years or you have unfiled tax returns, don't call those national toll-free numbers. Affordable, secure, and local help is available for you. Call Gilbert at 828-289-9300. Gilbert is an enrolled agent permitted to practice before the IRS. Taxation is his specialty. He knows the latest laws to help you with your problem. Avoid garnishments, levies, and liens. All initial consultations are free. Call Gilbert at 828-289-9300.
We are back. Gilbert Talks Taxes, WCAB AM 590, FM 100.9. My telephone number is 828-289-9300. We are accepting new clients. Thank you for that wonderful endorsement, Kimberly. We do tax issue resolution. Usually I don't start talking about tax issue resolution until after April 18th because that's when the letters start coming. The letters start coming from the IRS and from North Carolina and from everybody else. But we do that. We do tax returns, though. We are accepting new clients, and we are working on them. Give us a call, 828-289-9300. Now, you can drop things off. You don't need an appointment just to drop things off. Now, if you want to talk to me, of course, you make an appointment, you can talk to me. But as far as just, if you want to come in and drop your documents off, especially if you're a prior year client, you can just do that Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We are open. We are staying later. I was there till 2:48 in the morning the other day. Yeah, and I realized I hadn't turned the open sign off till about 11:30. I walked out in the lobby to get something, and I turn around, and there is my big gold open sign on, and I went, ooh, let me turn that off. Midnight tax practice. Yeah, well, and now, I was going to talk about this earlier, and I forgot. We do have a drive-through.
Yeah.
The drive-through does work. Emily loves using the drive-through. Oh, she thinks it's the most wonderful thing in the world. And we have had people drive through. You can drop off. You can pick up. You can make a payment. Yeah, we're full service, so you don't have to get out of your car. Some of the people have, especially that one day that it was just pouring down rain. People were like, hey, this is really convenient. I said, yes, it is. I can pretty much do your tax return right through that little slot in the wall, okay? But yeah, so the drive-through works, so you can drop off there. But regular office hours are 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and Saturdays from 10 to 4. We're keeping those hours, but don't hesitate to call and confirm that. We are staying later in the evenings. I think we were there last night till 8 o'clock, 8-ish. We left, and it's pretty much going to be that way now through the end of May. But yeah, 828-289-9300. So Tom and I were having a very interesting conversation. I told Tom during the break, I said we should have just kept talking about this on the air. These estates, family members you never knew are going to show up to the receiving of friends, the memorial service, whatever you want to call it. Up north, they still have, they still call it a wake. You still hear that word a lot up there. And some of them, especially old school people, there was actually a client of ours. They were retired down in Spartanburg. Mother passed away, and they actually had it. It was very old school. They had it for 3 days. They were receiving friends at the family for 3 days. That's old school. There. Yeah. Oh, well, when I was a child, again, I'm 63 years old. When I was a child, I remember those. You would be, so-and-so passed away. We're going to stop by the house. You're going to do it tonight? No, let's do it tomorrow night. I think it'd be better. Well, man, I'm thinking about going maybe Friday, so they would do that. And that would go on for 2 or 3 days. Yeah, and they would do that. So, but you're going to have every family member, people that you haven't seen, like your mother didn't see that cousin since their wedding 40 years before. All of a sudden, he shows up. Yeah, telling you the things that Aunt Louise promised him. Yeah, I've seen it. Listen, I have seen it. And the stories. they show up to the will reading, or they call up and want to know where is the will and when's it going to be read, and things like that. Am I in the will? Some are just blatant about it. They're busy. They're not going to show up unless their name's in the will. Yeah, so it's sad. That's why it's sad, because there's more to people than that. I mean, there's people that we've been doing their taxes for 20 years, and I was telling Christy the other day, some of these people, it feels like they're family to us. We probably know more about some of them than their own family knows about them. And it's really something, because I remember the little babies. Now they're coming with babies. And you look at them. I had one Monday. Emily was helping her, and I went in there and I said, I remember you when you were 8 years old. And she laughed, and she said, yeah, I used to come in there, and that's the girl that used to come around my desk and look for chocolate in my drawers. And there she is, getting her tax return done, holding her baby in her arms. And I said, yeah, time goes on, but so we're involved in people's lives. So when this happens, it's to me personally, it's sad that thing happens. But protect yourself. Have a will, please. It's very important. If you've got enough assets, we need to discuss putting them in trust. We need to discuss an estate. It's more than just a tax return, and you were the executor of your, I think you excuse me, you've shared this with me before. You're the executor of your aunt's estate.
Right.
Yeah. It's actually become, I don't know what year that was in, but it's actually become a job with a lot of liability now. Be careful who you pick for an executor, because there was a court case, and this kind of was an important court case, and I'm not shelling. There was a lot of moving parts to it. There was a court case where the executor took the money, and it was a substantial estate, took a part of the money and invested it in, like, I don't know what, invested it like in leisure suits or something, like invested it in like a crazy stock scheme that somebody she met proposed to her. Right. And it's one of those, where you put the money in and it's gone. Like literally, here's the $500,000, and, by the end of the month, the money's gone. So the beneficiaries wanted to know where the money was. And she said, well, I made this investment, and whatever happened to the investment. And so they sued her. And her position, and this had been the position before of many people, I'm not a financial planner. I don't know anything about this. I just did what I thought was right, and it didn't work out. And the judge said, no. We live in an internet age now. We live in an information age. We live in a time now where, it's all right here on your phone. I mean, anything you need. And he told her, if you didn't know, you knew what you didn't know, you should have gone and hired a professional. You should have gone and gotten somebody. You should have gone and gotten advice. And he held her liable for this, whatever the amount of money was, $500,000, $250,000, or $750,000, whatever the amount of money was, held her liable. And then the IRS came in and held her liable, which that's always been. The IRS holds you liable for not paying the taxes. The executor or trustee, executrix, whatever you call it, they are liable for paying those taxes, and they got to make sure. The worst thing that I see, worse thing than just an incompetent executor or trustee or whatever you want to call it, is where I say it's just worse because it's not fair to the person. They don't know they're the executor. The will, they find the will, there's a will there, or, Aunt Jean always said there would be a will. It's in Aunt Jean's drawer. Everybody gets together, opens up the will, and there it says, Betty Lou, you are my executor. And Betty Lou's clueless. Had no idea. So, and Betty Lou doesn't even know where to begin with Aunt Jean's stuff. At least let your executor, your executrix, whatever. There's a lot of different names, but it's all the same thing. The person that's going to be responsible, let them know. Have a conversation with them and at least say, hey, Tom, I want you to handle my estate for me. Should anything happen to me, should I die before you, please handle my estate for me. I'm going to name you in the will. Let them know that. Okay? It'll save a lot of time and a lot of trouble. Okay. So, again, I could do multiple programs on this topic. And thank you for calling and getting us on that topic. Talked about the deadline dates, so everything's pretty much the same. Tax filing. Last week, I talked about something, I brought something up, and several people commented on it, and I want to talk a little bit more about it. I had said that we talked about abusive tax shelters. I don't know if you remember me talking about this. Abusive tax shelters. So a tax shelter, we got, how much time we got left? Oh, 20 minutes. We got all kinds of time. Listen, there are college courses on this topic, okay? There is like, in tax law, there's a whole thing about this. So I'm going to try to get it all in 20 minutes. Abusive tax shelters, okay? The IRS determines, so technically any idea that will avoid you paying taxes. Remember, tax avoidance is not illegal. Tax evasion is illegal, but tax avoidance is normal. It's a strategy. It's actually in the IRS code. Tax avoidance. So any strategy that will avoid you paying taxes is technically a tax shelter. Okay? And the IRS understands that people are going to take advantage of tax shelters. It's not illegal. It sounds, people make it sound like it's, we came up with a plan and it's a tax shelter. They like whisper, it's a tax shelter. You can say it loud. It's okay. It's a tax shelter. It's okay. The problem is, when does it become an abusive tax shelter and when does it become illegal? And believe it or not, it is a very fine line. It is, and the IRS, when you read the codes and stuff, it talks a lot about an aggressive, tax scheme or an aggressive tax shelter. Well, the definition of aggressive is very broad, as many of these legal terms are. It's very broad. And, when is it passive aggressive? When is it just plain aggressive, right? I mean, one man's idea of aggressive is not another man's idea of aggressive. And if you found two people that could agree on it, I'd be shocked. So where is that line? One of the things the IRS looks at is, did you set this whatever shelter up? And a shelter can be, Tom, let's you and I buy some houses and let's rent them. We will get a tax-favored deduction. We can depreciate the houses. We can, actually, if you structure this thing correctly, it will lose money. It will reduce our tax burden. We'll get appreciation on the property. We'll make money when we sell the properties 20 years from now. It's a totally legitimate plan I just laid out. Happens every day. Millions of people do this every day. Okay? That is technically a tax shelter right there. So where does it become an abusive tax shelter? If the sole purpose of me laying that plan out was just to reduce my taxes, technically, that is an abusive tax shelter, because the sole purpose of it was to reduce taxes. Okay? So, and that's a little key thing when you're thinking about these things and you're doing this. Is this the only reason we're doing this? Is this the only reason we're creating, 14 LLCs and putting all these properties in these LLCs is to reduce our tax bill? Then you have now just entered into the abusive tax shelter land. Okay? But if the thing is, hey, Tom, let's buy these houses. We're going to rent them. We can make some money. We're going to have great appreciation because real estate, overall, yeah, it goes up, yeah, it goes down. But overall, real estate goes up. They ain't making any more of it. And it goes up. I think this would be a nice 20-year plan for you and me. We can get some passive income. We can, own this real estate. We can increase our net worth. Oh, and by the way, I listen to Gilbert Talks Taxes, and according to him, we're going to get a nice tax break on this. That is not an abusive tax shelter. That is now a legitimate business plan that happens to have a tax benefit to it. And that's the difference. Let's go ahead and take a break, and I'm going to talk about my favorite, let me say it that way, my favorite abusive tax shelter story, Willie Nelson. Got to talk about him. Let's take a break. Gilbert Talks Taxes, WCAB, AM 590, FM 100.9.
As we get ready for this year's tax season, there's one thought on everyone's mind. Will Gilbert's hair look fabulous this year? Oh, yes, it will. How can I say that? because I go to Robin Saunders at RSL Salon. Whether it's a good haircut, a pedicure, or a manicure, you can count on RSL Salon. Call Robin at 828-289-9110 because everyone deserves to look fabulous. I want to tell you about another great local business, Forest City Concrete and Grading. Call Sean at 828-447-5949. Sean is a licensed general contractor. He can do your job from site development to completion. That's Forest City Concrete and Grading. Call Sean at 828-447-5949 and tell him Gilbert Talks Taxes sent you.
A good sign is good business. Make your business stand out with a professional sign from Dia Signs and Graphics. Successful companies all over the United States trust the team at Dia Signs and Graphics. With 25 years of professional experience, we have the ability to present your company's image in the best light. Not only display signs, but Dia Signs and Graphics can print banners of all sizes. If you need magnetic signs or window and vehicle graphics, call on Dia Signs and Graphics today. We offer a full line of sign products for any event. 3D, sandblasted, storefront, and monument signs are just a part of a complete selection of quality signage, professional signs, and banners to fit any budget. Let your business stand out. Call Dia Signs and Graphics today at 286-4900 or stop by the sign shop located on Main Street in downtown Spindale and check our website for more suggestions at diasignsandgraphics.com.
We are back. Gilbert Talks Taxes, WCAB AM 590, FM 100.9. Okay, so my favorite abusive tax shelter story is Willie Nelson, and I forget what year Willie did this, but Willie was actually in a tax shelter that was deemed abusive. And what happens is that these high net earned people, high net worth people are targets for these. In fairness to Willie, this is what happened, and I've talked about this. So it was 1984. The IRS began an examination of Nelson's tax return, and he had a substantial deduction for tax sheltered investments. Okay, so at the bottom line, the IRS disallowed it, and he had to pay back $6 million in taxes, which wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the $10 million of interest and underpayment penalties for the 6 years that they had run this shelter. Now, if you remember, he H&R Block tapped him years later. This actually happened in 1984. So in 1984 is when the IRS contacted him, and he'd been running this tax shelter for about 10 years. Now, in fairness to Willie, he didn't know anything about it. And the way, because this is actually a very famous story in our industry, and a lot of IRS agents talk about it, and I've talked to people about it. People actually study this what happened. And this is just my take on it. I don't know, this may not be what happened, but what I think happened is you had an IRS agent, okay? Because I don't know if you've ever dealt with an IRS agent, but these are pretty low-key people. You know, the stereotype of the aggressive IRS agent who gets up in the morning and wants to kick your door down and take all your money, that's really not what you're dealing with. You know, the IRS would like you to think that they're all like that, but they're really not. Most of them are just very nice people that go to work every day, and this is what they do. So you probably had an IRS agent that got Willie Nelson's file to work on, and he was probably a fan. In 1980s, Willie Nelson was, would you say that's the peak of his career? 80s, 90s, maybe? Late 70s? I mean, definitely the 80s. I mean, so this guy's in the peak of his career. He's making the most money. How old is he now? I think is he 80s? He's in his 80s, yeah. So he's in probably the peak of his career. He's at the top. Guy gets the file, and the guy's probably so excited he gets to talk to Willie Nelson on the phone. Because Willie's got to talk to him, by the way. I don't care how rich and famous you are, you have to have that initial contact. Now, you can turn it over to me, an enrolled agent. Willie probably should have called me, because I would have handled it a little bit different than he did. But Willie didn't. So the guy calls Willie to discuss his tax shelter, which involved it involved the Bahamas and real estate and sending money down there and paying no taxes. Okay. So, yeah, that's without getting into all of it, sound familiar? Sound like FTX, which just happened? Yeah. So see, things don't change very much, do they? So the guy calls Willie, and Willie Nelson, not being known for being a humble guy, not being known for just saying yes sir, no sir, told the IRS agent what he thought of them. Okay? Not a thing to say to an IRS agent. Yeah. And pretty much was uncooperative, to say the least, and threw some colorful language in the mix. So the agent did what all good agents are going to do. They're going to escalate this thing to a criminal case. Because it was $6 million in 1980s money. I mean, that's a lot of money today. I think if you adjusted it for, I read one of the websites when I was, because I go back and research the story a lot when I talk, because I talk about it. And if you adjusted that for today's money, you're talking approximately $32 million. So for inflation and all that, 40 years of inflation, you're talking roughly approximately $32 million. So it was quite a bit of money he was sheltering. So $6 million. The auditor escalates the thing, and Willie Nelson pretty much lost everything he owned. They took his guitars away. Fans bought them at the IRS auction and gave them back to him. And he was able to ship some things to his daughter who lived in Hawaii, and he was able to have some personal items, that he was allowed to keep, but he shipped some things to his daughter for safekeeping. I mean, he lost it all over an abusive tax shelter. And an interesting side note, so years later the IRS tapped him and made him their spokesperson. It was pretty tongue-in-cheek, and it was pretty funny. You go back and look at some of those commercials. Yeah, would you take tax advice from this guy? Was the theme of the overall and they, H&R Block said, no, don't. See how confident I am, Tom? I talk about the competition. That's confidence. They said, would you take that? Don't call H&R Block. Was the theme of their whole thing. But in one of the commercials, they nailed it. It's exactly what happened. The CPA calls them and says, oh, by the way, that money we've been sheltering, the IRS disallowed it. And then wanted to take Willie Nelson out to lunch. So they actually have that in one of the commercials, because that's what happened. The guy was, hey, you want to go out to lunch? Yeah. It ended up costing, it was one of the big 10 firms he was using, and it ended up costing them, because he sued them, and I think they paid half the bill. Of course, nobody will disclose it, but at the end of the day, it's estimated they paid around $12 million. It cost them about $12 million. Yeah, because he sued them for their fees, too. He sued them for everything, errors and omissions. So the point of that whole story is, if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to set something up to reduce your tax burden, be sure that that's not the only reason, because that's why his tax shelter failed the scrutiny, because it was set up solely for the purpose of avoiding paying taxes. There was no other legitimate reason for Willie Nelson owning these assets in the Bahamas. There was there was no reason, and there was no reason for even doing this business. So that's when you cross that line, and when does it go? Okay, now, so let me go into, I'm going to talk here for, how much time I got left? I got 5.5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay. So this time of the year, okay, so I'm done with that. So going into another topic. This time of the year, I review a lot of people come to me from other tax preparers, especially with COVID. A lot of preparers retired. It's happening all over the country, not just here locally. lot of preparers just retired. A lot of people closed their doors and did not reopen. Why? Who knows? People relocated. I don't know. But we're getting quite a lot of people passed away. Some of the older preparers passed away. Our condolences to the Brown family. Very, very good tax preparer and advisor in Columbus passed away, Mr. Brown, and so I'll get a lot of people coming to me to take over their file, take over their case. So we'll review the tax return. Now, if we find a mistake, or if we find something that's been done differently than how I think it should be done, we amend. And you can amend, and there's nothing wrong with amending, and amending is not a red flag. I get a lot of phone calls where people will say, the preparer made a mistake. We were looking over the last year's tax return or 2 years' tax returns, and he wants to amend, and I'm worried that I don't want a red flag with the IRS. That amending a tax return is not a red flag, okay? A lot of people amend for a lot of reasons. I have seen people, now I've never done this, but I've seen people amend a tax return 3 times in 1 year for various reasons. There's a whole school out there that would rather get the tax return filed timely and not extend. And then, because sometimes we'll know we're waiting for something, or there's something like in like a financial statement from an investment that's not right, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, we're going to correct that. We'll send you the corrected paperwork." And some people say, "Well, let's extend and wait for that." Other people will say, "No, don't extend. Go ahead and file the tax return, and when we get that paperwork, if we have to amend, let's amend." So there's a whole thinking about that and a whole strategy there. My take on it is amend. I've never had an amended return raise a red flag. I've never, and again, the red flag thing just doesn't exist. Some things get added scrutiny, but as far as like a red flag because you amended, no, it doesn't work that way. And actually, you can even amend electronically now. Not all amended returns have to be paper filed. Depending on what you're amending for, it's as simple as e-filing your return. Okay, so I don't know you people that use online tax prep software that do your own, the DIY crowd, the do-it-yourself people. I don't know if you can amend there, but like my clients, I can amend electronically. Or we amend paper file. So I really do recommend, though, if you find a serious mistake, don't hesitate. Amending is okay. It's not going to raise a red flag. It's not a guarantee audit. That's what one person said. One person said, "Oh, well, that's going to guarantee I'm going to get audited." No, it's not. It's just not. And especially if the amended return gets you a bigger refund, something got omitted, something got forgotten, something got lost. Sometimes you have to amend to fix a problem that happened in prior years. So, because some numbers carry forward. So you may go back and amend a couple of years. So there's no issues with amending. It is okay. You can do it. Don't worry about that part of it. I'd worry more about making sure you get your amendment correct and make sure that there's no other issues, because amending, let's say you have to go back and amend a 2019 tax return, it could affect your 2020 tax return. You might have to amend that too. So do the whole job. Don't just do part of the job. Okay? So 1 minute, Tom. 1 minute. And here I am. There is no topic on my list here that I can talk about in 1 minute. Tom, not one topic. Talked about that, talked about our girl, Erin Collins. She's doing a fabulous job. Talked about her last week. Talked about that. Well, Tom, all I can say is if you need your tax return done, pick up the phone and call Gilbert. Gilbert Talks Taxes, Carmona Financial Consultants at 704 Oak Street in Forest City, Tom. It's in Forest City. And we're in Tryon on Trade Street. My telephone number is 828-289-9300, and I will be back next Saturday at 8 a.m., and I really hope to have Emily with me. Thank you very much.
The music's on us on WCAB.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packard. The Pentagon calls it spying. China denies it, but that huge high-altitude Chinese balloon continues to sail across the U.S. today.
It first entered American airspace over Alaska, then flew into southwest Canada before dipping down over Billings, Montana. The Pentagon says the balloon is expected to linger above America for a few days. Congressman Ryan Zinke from Montana tweeting, "Shoot it down." But the Pentagon advising against that, saying debris could injure people on the ground or cause property damage. President Biden agrees with the recommendation. Derek Dennis, ABC News.
But once it gets over water, the U.S. may take a shot.
The U.S. official familiar with this situation says the current thinking is to wait for the balloon to drift over the Atlantic Ocean and then shoot it down once it's over U.S. territorial waters. That way, one, you can avoid any injuries on the ground, and two, you can retrieve the balloon, study it, and ultimately exploit the intelligence.
ABC's Mola Lengi. Cold enough?
Overnight wind chills approaching 60 below in spots like New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, where there's a blizzard warning with whiteout conditions. Outside Springfield, Massachusetts, as winds gusted above 50 miles per hour, a tree crashed onto a car, killing a 6-month-old girl inside. The woman who was driving was rushed to the hospital.
ABC's Victor Akendo in Boston, where a cold emergency is in place. The U.S. announcing another $2.2 billion in aid for Ukraine. A big part of the package, what's known as USAI, precision-guided rockets.
The new missiles will double the range, meaning the Ukrainians will be able to hit targets way deeper behind the Russian lines. President Zelensky saying longer-range missiles are needed to halt the Russian offensive in eastern Ukraine. Zelensky vowing his troops are not about to withdraw from the brutal battle in Bakhmut, calling the besieged city a Ukrainian fortress. The U.S. also providing Ukraine with more machine guns for shooting down lethal drones.
ABC's Tom Sophie Borage in Ukraine. You're listening to ABC News.
I am Kate Gibson, and I hope I don't regret starting a weekly podcast with my father, Charlie Gibson.
Thanks, kiddo. On our new ABC audio podcast, The Bookcase with Kate and Charlie Gibson, we will have conversations with our favorite new and established writers, as well as book lovers and booksellers.
There's nothing more delicious than spoon-feeding yourself every word of a wonderful novel.
New episodes of The Bookcase with Kate and Charlie Gibson are posted every Thursday.
Wait a minute. You mean now I can listen to GMA any time of the day, anywhere?
Yes, that's exactly what we mean with the new Good Morning America podcast. Listen to all of GMA served up daily straight to you. Oh, Michael.
What? I'm listening to our new GMA podcast. It's really good.
Listen to the Good Morning America podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Subscribe now. It's really good.
California is reversing course on a state policy first announced by Governor Gavin Newsom during the pandemic. ABC's Alex Stone has more from Los Angeles.
As the country's most populated state gets ready to end its coronavirus emergency later this month, it's also backing away from plans to issue emergency regulations, adding the COVID vaccine to the list of required school vaccines. In October of 2021, California Governor Gavin Newsom made a headline-grabbing announcement that California would require the COVID vaccine for children to be in classrooms. Then the rule was delayed until the summer of 2023. Now California's Department of Public Health saying it will not seek emergency rules to require COVID vaccines to attend schools. Alex Stone, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Formula One has been exploding in popularity in the United States, and now a major American automaker is throwing its hat into the ring. ABC's Mike Dubusky has more.
Ford announcing a partnership with Red Bull. The automaker says they'll be developing internal combustion engines as well as battery cell and electric motor technology for eventual use in hybrid F1 powertrains. Mark Rushbrook, Global Director of Ford Performance Motorsports.
We've got a very similar set of values, a very similar culture. We want to win too. They want to win, and we're going to demand the best from each other.
Expect to see it in race cars for the 2026 season. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
This is ABC News.
The website fully crashed!
A nightmare.
So what went wrong?
Everything.
When you hear the name Ye or